Oh, you can't see us. Okay.
Not yet. Not until the meeting starts.
All right. Well, I was giving you a high five anyway. You doing okay?
Okay, well, here you go.
Oh.
Here you go.
The moment's lost.
Jen just texted me and she's going to be
Yeah, I don't have to.
supporting that too.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channel, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Okay, so can you see us now?
I can. It's good to see you.
Okay, good to see you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to welcome everybody to the meeting today. The Select Board Chair, Nico, is joining us via Zoom. Thank you to the other two trustees for coming. And we do have Jen Martell on the agenda, and she will be here shortly. So I know it looks like a long agenda, but a lot of these things are place marks like we've done in the past, just so that we don't forget about them. So there is no public to make public comments at this point. So let's go down to approval of the minutes. We have 3 meetings. The first one is the bid opening minutes for November 15th. Did anybody note any errors or omissions in that?
No.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to accept those.
I'll move it. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes, so those minutes are accepted as written. Then we had a regular trustee meeting after that on the same day. So there are a couple of things on this one. In the heading, it states it's in the wheelwright room. It should be in the no-walk room. The date is November 16th. It should be November 15th. And does anybody else note any errors or omissions in our regular meeting minutes
No.
of the 15th?
No.
So I'll entertain a motion to accept those as changed.
Motion to accept this change. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, so those minutes are accepted with the changes. The next minutes are the minutes of our combined meeting on November 20th. Reading through this, on page 2, line 80, the word "they" should be the word "that" in there. That's the only thing that I saw. Does anybody else have any errors or omissions?
No, it looks substantially correct. Make a motion to accept those minutes.
As noted. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, and the minutes are accepted with the one change. Thank you, guys. Okay. So while we wait for Jen to arrive, the turnaround is on the agenda, but there really isn't anything to talk about that.
Well, we should, have we ever discussed the functionality of that thing?
No, but
You want to wait till Jen gets here?
Right.
Incorporate all that together?
Right, and I know that I did not watch the select board meeting last night, but there is a warrant article put in, so I don't know what is going to transpire with the turnaround at this point, so, but I still want to hear Jen make her presentation on that, so. Tree donations, that's still on. We talked about that in our November meeting, going to the tree committee. I have not received any update on any donations that want to be made. Do you know if we wanted to get the tree committee involved with that? Do you know if the tree committee has had any requests?
I can ask Eileen.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been talking to her.
Darius,
I've had no conversation, so.
okay. we do have some spaces that we can fill down there.
Oh, yeah.
Wayne, can you repeat that about the tree committee?
We had, in our November meeting, we talked about tree donations, and we also wanted to get the tree committee involved with that. I know that they were involved in the donation of the, what were the new trees?
The elms.
The elms down there. So we wanted to have the tree committee involved with any donations that might come
Okay,
forth.
no, and the reason I ask is because I'm also the select board rep to the tree committee.
Yep.
And I know they received, a couple months ago, they received, 12 or 14 trees that Steve Jones donated. And I know that they had talked about approaching you if they haven't already. And then moving forward, there's going to be money in the budget for the tree committee to start planting trees annually. So they will be a lot more active. So I applaud the fact that you're both working together.
Yeah, I think those trees that were donated to him were those elms.
Yes.
So we've had, we got 3, is that?
Three.
I think it's 3 that.
3
I think that sounds right.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
we received, and they've been planted down there, so,
Great. Okay.
so we wanted to get their involvement, with tree donations down there also.
Great. Okay, good. Thank you.
Good evening, Ms. Martell. So I have a lot of things that are just placeholders on here, so if I could just finish going through those, and then we'll get you right up to make your presentation. How's that? All right. The planting along the fence behind the Harris Center, we have that to do, hopefully in the spring. And we have talked a little bit about some plant material for that, so.
The viburnum, right?
Yep, yep, and maybe a couple of other different things.
Yep.
So that is there as a placeholder. The tree pruning that we have on here, now again, I look back in November, we had talked about, there was a birch and that ash tree over by the block building. We said we were going to wait till the ground freezes up, and we were going to ask Will about that. Can we do that? I know the birch, I think, that's going to be in the construction area, so we're going to have to wait till that gets finished. But do you think that it's somewhat firm enough to do the ash?
With the amount of moisture in the ground right now, I think it's just a crust. And I think his lift would drop right through it.
Okay. Yeah, it's the only reason I asked. Plowing, I know that I've scuffed some stuff up too, so.
Yeah, we've just got so much moisture in the ground, and
Okay,
yeah.
all right. There's a couple of other things, but I want to get right to your presentation, Ms. Martell. So I know that it is up there.
I think they can split the screen, but, so I think everyone's seeing 2 things. They're seeing Nico, and they're also seeing the presentation, I believe.
It's,
But it's small. Maybe they'll change it once it starts, or,
I'm not sure. Will is here if,
Here he comes.
yeah.
so is
I'm
one,
just gonna select it
Okay.
on here. I'll change, he can see everything. I don't have to share screen or anything. Yeah, I just select it now.
okay. So-
I think that, does that clicker work?
Oh,
The big button should go forward. Point over here.
Oh,
Okay,
yep.
sweet. And the small one will go back.
great. Thank you.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much for fitting me in on your agenda. My name is Jen Martell. I've been an Exeter resident for 8 years. I live at 23 Woodridge Lane. I'm also a member of the planning board, and I'm a professional landscape architect. And so I'm here tonight to talk to you about the proposed plan that I saw I rewatched your meeting from November 20th, I guess it was, with the
Yep.
select board, where
Yes.
the cul-de-sac presentation was presented to the select board. And it raised a lot of concerns for me as a landscape architect and a resident of this town. And so I just wanted to sort of use tonight to tell you about some of my concerns and offer perhaps an alternative plan. And this proposal, or my list of concerns, was also emailed to the select board, so they have them. I don't think they've discussed.
We have them too.
And you have them
Yes.
as well. Should I go through them, or?
You can if you would like to, yes.
Yeah, I'll just kind of explain it, and then if you have any questions, we can talk about it. So essentially, I think that, the cul-de-sac proposal it seems like a small thing, but it's actually a pretty significant infrastructural change given its location on the parkway, the amount of pavement it proposes, and I think it really is doing more harm than good. One of my primary concerns as a landscape architect, I know that Swasey Parkway is actually a really important piece of our cultural heritage. It was actually designed by the descendants of Frederick Law Olmsted, who is the father of landscape architecture, designed Central Park, designed the lots of other parks, the Emerald Necklace, for example. There's only a few Olmsted parks in our state, and this is one of them. And it's, I think, really important. The plan is up on the board. And it's pretty much, it's been maintained. Obviously, trees have been changed, the pavilion was added, things have obviously, land has been acquired and whatnot, it's expanded. But I mean, in general, it's a beautiful green space on the waterfront. As it was originally designed, all of the stonework and everything is still exactly as they designed it. And so it's really important. So I think that any changes that we make, we should really take carefully in anything this significant, in terms of changing the circulation patterns, adding pavement, et cetera. I want to say I do understand the town's mandate via warrant article to establish a pedestrian-only section of the parkway, and that is something I wholeheartedly support. I think that, during COVID, when we opened up the parkway to pedestrians, it was wonderful. Even now, you can still walk through there. You don't have to worry about cars. I think that's great, but I just think that the cul-de-sac isn't the best way to go about it. So here are the specific concerns. I'll just go forward to the proposal that I saw. I know that this is being reworked and changed a little bit, but some of the specific concerns I have about it is it removes about 5,000 square feet of open space from the park itself in favor of vehicular circulation, and the space it removes is kind of the main event space. So I've been to events here where that space is filled with people for concerts and whatnot, and that 5,000 square feet, or about 15% of that space, is gonna go away. It adds about 2,800 square feet of impervious pavement in the form of asphalt in close proximity to our vulnerable wetland resources. This basically increases runoff, it exacerbates flooding, it discourages infiltration, obviously, because it's impermeable. We know that this is an area that floods, as we've seen in the past few weeks, quite regularly. So we really should not be adding more pavement as much as possible. And if we do add more pavement, it really should be pervious pavement. Another concern is just because this park is really a piece of our cultural heritage in our town, I think that the Heritage Commission should have a chance to weigh in on anything we do, and that's kind of this significant. So that's something I would recommend that the town do, is seek out the advice of the Heritage Commission on this change. I'd be curious if this cul-de-sac goes through, how the road is closed at Water Street. Currently, it's just closed with, Jersey barriers or whatever those orange things are, for the construction, which makes a lot of sense, but obviously that's not a permanent solution. So what's going to go there to prevent cars from going in? And I think that it should be sort of in the vein of the park design. It shouldn't be something that's kind of haphazard. The curbing issue, I think, was brought up, the fact that, the proposal doesn't include curbing. I think it definitely has to include curbing just from a safety standpoint. In addition, there's a gate proposed in this design. I don't know if I can point. Oh, yeah, I can. There's a gate proposed right here. What does that look like? Is it just like a galvanized steel swing gate? Not the most attractive thing in the world. How would that be controlled? All these outstanding questions, which I don't think have been resolved. And then lastly, the Swasey Parkway is only 24 feet wide. And what I heard is that the side of Swasey Parkway that's on the right on this page, so basically like the northern end of the parkway, would be two-way vehicular circulation and parking. And 24 feet is not wide enough to have two-way circulation and parking safely. That would require at least 30 feet at a minimum. So there's just not enough room for that proposal. Can you get by? Can you do it? I know we have been doing it. Like, people have been parking along the road. And I think probably, if you see a car parked and you got to pass and somebody's coming in the other direction, you kind of pull over and wait for them to go and then you go. But it's not a solution. It's not a safe solution. And if we're talking about doing a design, I don't think that doesn't hold up on paper. Like, it just doesn't work. So for all those reasons, I think that we should really reconsider this cul-de-sac proposal. And then I think that there are alternatives. And, I have one. I don't think it's definitely not the only solution. I'm sure there are others. And I think if we put our heads together, we can come up with something. But one idea that I came up with is to essentially turn Swasey Parkway into a shared street, a one-way shared street. So one way heading from, oops, oh, what did I do? I somehow made this not get big. Sorry.
That's all right. I don't know.
Hit the wrong button. Thank you. So
Thank you, Will. I told you we would probably be calling, but thank you.
So this is a plan just for orientation's sake. Swampscott Rivers down here, Water Street downtown area is here, and then the Newfields Road connection is here. The road that you see in blue is the 24-foot wide Swasey Parkway. The lines that you see in orange are the existing pedestrian walkways through the park. The proposal would basically draw a line down the center of the road, and one side of the line would be open to pedestrians and bicycles, 11 feet wide, and the other side of the line would be one-way vehicular circulation, 11 feet wide, and then between them there'd be a 2-foot wide separator or buffer, and we could talk about what that looks like. Shared streets are something that have been being installed in municipalities everywhere, and they, in this image that you see, the separator is just a painted strip, but you can use those like flexible bollards. Also, there's all sorts of different things that we'd probably want to, you need to consider plowing and all that stuff also. But the general idea is that it becomes that condition, so all of this light blue area up to this existing walkway would be half one-way vehicular and half for pedestrians and bikes. At this connection, I propose that we just add a crosswalk. There's an existing walkway here, but there's no crosswalk. Add a crosswalk and a small asphalt connection to the existing pedestrian walkway that goes along the river, because that doesn't exist anymore. But that would basically be the end of the pedestrians in the street condition. And then the dark blue part is where the road turns into one-way circulation with parallel parking on the river side of the street. So in that case, you have a 14-foot wide travel lane and 10 feet for parallel parking. Again, one-way travel. I'm proposing that the travel go from Newfields Road to Water Street rather than the other way. This allows for 24 parking spaces, including 2 accessible parking spaces, which I would recommend having down at this end right by the crosswalk so that people with disabilities can easily get out of their car and connect to the walking path in the shortest route possible. And then I just wanted to add that the length of in this scenario, the length of the pedestrian bicycle only is about 1/3 of a mile long. And that's it. I mean, I feel like this proposal, it's, the cost is minimal. It's really just, adding this minor improvements to this crosswalk and asphalt, and then some striping and probably some signage. And you leave it at that. So I'd be curious to hear your questions or any feedback you might have on this proposal.
I have one, you're proposing traffic flow north to south? Mm-hmm. Why is that?
My thinking was, because I heard the conversation from your meeting about taking a left turn onto Newfields Road, if you're going in the other direction. So I was thinking, well, that avoids that.
It's really not bad, though. And the only reason I say that is because over the years of observing traffic, it's typically people are coming in from the Newfield side with speed into the roadway.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're coming out of town, you've got to make that 90-degree turn, and the traffic seems to be a little more sedate going north than it is going south. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it could work both ways. I think it would be ideal if we did this, if the pedestrians could be on the riverside. Just because, people want to be close to the water, that's why they're there.
Yeah.
So even if it was going in the other direction, I think it'd be nice if it was on the left-hand side of the road. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that would be confusing to people, because you might kind of feel like you're driving on the left, but.
It's a trip to England.
Exactly. It's exotic.
That was my only question.
So one of the things that I suggested before the decision was made, the warrant article and the decision by the select board, town manager, the lawyer said you could, disband the trust, didn't mean you had to, was a simple solution of a trial to put Jersey barriers, approximately what you have as your blue line. One side is for walking bicycles, the other side visually, it's narrower, people will slow down. To try that wasn't even considered. But I like the fact that you've come with a proposal. Maybe it's because I was a trustee or someone just coming up with a simple idea, but you put a lot of thought behind it where this is a viable solution, something that could be tried. If it doesn't work, no harm, no foul. But having Jersey barriers visually will slow everybody down. And that was one of the big concerns, was people speeding, using it as a cut through. I like it.
I agree. I think it definitely could be a try it, and if it doesn't work, it's so low cost.
Right.
Like, why not?
The aesthetics of it are far superior than running a line of Jersey barriers down there, too.
This is true, but the concept of basically dividing the road, having minimal impact to losing any green space,
right.
Changing some behaviors.
No, I think this is just a polished idea.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I agree.
My company took care of the parkway for a long time, so I worked down there when there was parking and two-way traffic. When they redid the road, and it's been a long time since that has been done, we noticed that the road actually got a little bit narrower, but even when there was parking on both sides and two-way traffic, it was a challenge down there to work and all. I like your proposal. I don't know where we're going to stand with the warrant articles and everything that's going on with this. I have the plan for that the Olmsted architects did. I contacted I think it was the Kennedy Center, so I have all that on a stick, and it is pretty interesting. It actually went through 3 different revisions before the 1930 plan was planted. So it's interesting to see, and the plant material and what they planted in 1930 that was available that's invasive now. So it's interesting, and I don't know exactly how we can go about this other than just keeping it out there in the public eye and presenting it to the select board. But again, it's, we have to work around the warrant article and whatever goes in there.
But I think this is a further piece of information that voters could use.
No, I think it is too. Listen, you don't have to convince me because, I have always thought that the Parkway should be one way and should be able to be open for everybody to enjoy. So, again, but no, I do think this is another option. And again, I would ask you to see if we can present it to the select board or at least get it out there. You are on film now and with your presentation, and at least get it out there for the voters to see it. There has been a lot of discussion also about, the green space loss, the permeable pavement, the other things. How are we going to keep people from coming in if this is done to the pavilion from the north side, which actually, again, I feel that can't happen because that's not what the original warrant article that everybody is working on said. It was only to be closed to the pavilion. So I think there's a tremendous amount of things that have to go on also. But I like your proposal, and I thank you very much for bringing this in. This actually puts a walking pedestrian path farther than what the warrant article does. It goes down to that sidewalk, which if you go up in town, that's known as Sergeant's Hill.
Oh, okay.
So, and you're right, there is no crosswalk there. And from a maintenance standpoint, from us taking care of the Parkway, that was always a challenge because cars coming off the Newfields Road with their speed didn't slow down at that curve. So again, I'm with Dave, and I would like to see if this is a consideration to be from Water Street out, just because they can't come off at Water Street at 30 or 40 miles an hour like they can off of Newfields Road. So,
And people aren't late to work.
Yeah.
Right.
Going into
Trying
town.
to do it as a cut through.
Yeah.
Going in the
Correct.
morning,
Yeah,
they're
I can
coming
see
in.
that.
So,
And again, I agree with Dave and Dwayne that it should be one way. It should be open to, accessible to everybody. But again, that visual line, when you see a road that's narrower, you will tend to slow down just by naturally. So.
yeah, and there's other traffic calming things that could be done if necessary.
Right, the little ripples in the road.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, whatever.
Well-
Certainly less than $80,000.
And I, I've worked down there, so I've seen the speed tables that, was put in. I've seen a lot of things tried down there. So, I do like your plan. I guess the next step is, how do we get it out there? into the public eye. Do we ask the select board to see this presentation, or how do, I guess,
But it's kind of it's for the select board, it's kind of a moot point right now because the street it's officially closed right now. There is this petition warrant article coming up. But if the idea of one way is voted down, then it's a dead issue. If the
Correct.
idea of one way is voted for, then the Board of Selectmen, they have 2 votes in a row that were in favor of it being one way. And at that point, I think then they would start their considerations, if any. Right?
Well, we could ask the,
It just seems premature to give it to them. I don't know. Nico, what are your thoughts?
Thank you. I was waiting for the invitation. If you haven't watched the select board meeting last night, I encourage you to do so. We spent a lot of time talking about the citizens petition to which you referred a moment ago, but also spoke about where we've gone over the last 2 years since the original warrant article. We talked at length about the spirit of collaboration between the select board and the Swasey Park trustees, and we talked about the positive partnership that we have formed at least over the last year and a half, working with you, inviting you to our meetings, and in the spirit of collaboration, continuing to do so as we go into the spring. So you use the word premature, and it's interesting. And first of all, I'd like to just step back for a second and thank Jen for putting this together. This was part of the select board packet last evening. We did speak about it briefly. It was put in under correspondence, but we did refer to it during the discussion of the citizens petition. Last night's meeting, of course, was the public hearing for the bonds and warrant articles. I've worked with Jen on the planning board, and I know Jen is incredibly talented, and I think that there are a lot of great ideas here. And certainly, to be considered in the future. So, I'm sorry. But we have to go back to the fact that there was a warrant article 2 years ago. And we have to stop using the word closed, because the roadway is discontinued from Water Street to the gazebo. Meaning that it was a class 5 roadway up until it went before the probate court and ultimately the judge. The judge discontinued that part of the roadway as a class 5 roadway. So it's not closed, it's discontinued. There may be pavement there, but that section is not technically a road. So we get back into the legal opinion that we received last year after this first citizens petition, and then now we have a new citizens petition, which again can be open to interpretation. Please listen to the discussion of the select board last night. The select board unanimously voted not to recommend this. And if it passes, it would have to go back to a judge at some point for consideration of taking away the discontinuance of the road. But until that's done, from Water Street to the gazebo, that class 5 roadway no longer exists. It's discontinued. So we go back to the word Dave used, premature. I mean, I think that, at this point, we have to wait for the election. We have to wait to hear what legal counsel says. We have to wait to hear we don't know what the voters are going to do. And I think when the select board invited the trustees back in November, I think we agreed that, we'd probably take the next step in the springtime. The siphon project, will still be underway, hopefully coming up for completion. That whole cul-de-sac I don't want to call it a design because I think it was less than that, but it was just kind of a first step to take a look at what we could do. I don't think the select board was really, willing to move forward with that. And I got the impression the trustees weren't either, but it was a start. And I think that, how the board looked at this collaboration was to continue to work with you, the trustees, to get to a point where we're going to take that next step and then work with town staff. And then ultimately, I think we agreed we wanted to have a committee of citizens. Excuse me. I'm in a meeting. Thank you. Excuse me for that. We agreed that we wanted to have a committee of citizens to kind of work with us to come up with how do we want to do this that is most inclusive for as many people in the community as possible. So I would agree that cul-de-sac was that was a draft. We had asked the public works director, interim public works director, to put something together. We are working on, or we have another draft from somebody that's in the bullpen for right now, if you will, because again, it's premature. We have a new public works director who started a couple of weeks ago. It'd be interesting to hear what his thoughts are. So I think that whatever happens, I'd like it to continue to be cooperative in nature between the board, the trustees, and the community. Not everybody is going to be happy, but I think that we agree whether the road stays discontinued or it becomes one way again, we should try to do something that will benefit the community as a whole as best that we possibly can. Regarding the crosswalk, I think that's interesting. I learned something one of the first couple of years I was on the board. I was always for putting crosswalks anywhere and everywhere. And actually sat in with a neighborhood with the public works director at the time and the highway superintendent, the town engineer. And I learned a lot about crosswalks, that sometimes crosswalks can be more dangerous having them than not. So I'd really wanted to hear, what the engineers thought of that, just for a safety purpose. But I guess that's really where we're at. It was a really long answer to your question, Dave, but I think there's just so many movable parts right now. But we have to remember that no matter what we're talking about in discussion, as it stands now by the judge's order, that portion of the road is not a road anymore. It's discontinued.
All right.
And Nico, just for a point of clarification, was that the judge said we could close the road, not that we had to close the road? Is that correct? Right?
No, based on the warrant article that passed in 2022, right? And the warrant article spelled out that the next steps were going to be the Rockingham probate court, and then it was going to go to, or the trust fund, and then it was going to go to the probate court. When the judge issued that ruling, it discontinued the road. It was a class 5 roadway, but that portion that's spelled out in the warrant article is discontinued.
Thank you.
Oh, one other thing, Mr. Chair, if I may. When we're talking about the funding too, the $80,000 that was thrown around, I mean, that was just an estimate based on that one cul-de-sac. But it's important to remember that we do have monies that the select board has put aside from the road aid that we received from the state. And there's no timeline under which we need to spend that. So we do have road aid that we can be using towards any part of the project that involves the pavement that's not taxpayer dollars.
Right.
Yeah, and I think our notes actually capture that from our combined meeting.
Yeah.
As I read through that, so.
Yep.
So I guess right now we have to wait until March until the vote.
Yeah.
I would ask Ms. Martell if you would still stay involved with this as far as, whatever happens. I very much appreciate the thoughtfulness of your design, and I wish that, I wish we had it 2.5 years ago, so we could have talked about that before the warrant article. But again, I grew up in town. I've lived in town. My company has worked at the Parkway, so I helped make changes down there, and I've seen changes made down there. So I do think, the Parkway is something special to Exeter. And I had a friend who said, Dwayne, isn't it amazing the amount of conflict that we have over such a small piece of land? But I think the conflict and how it all is going to ultimately gets resolved is important for the town and for the citizens of the town. So,
Well, I think another thing that Jen said that needs to be probably further emphasized is, regardless of how this thing goes, one way, discontinued, cul-de-sac, whatever solution we come up with, is what a jewel that park is, and whatever alterations are made to it to try to keep it within the original design integrity that was developed when the parkway was planned. That's an important point, I think. There might very well have to be some changes, but let's make them gentle.
yeah.
That's very well said, Dave.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. And I think that the approach that I haven't seen the select board meeting, but I will watch it. I think the approach that you all came up with of, I'm happy to hear that the cul-de-sac the brakes are being pumped on that a little bit, and that it could potentially.
It never really accelerated. That was
awesome.
just.
That's great to hear.
It was a draft to start a conversation.
I'm not always in the loop on these things, so I'm happy to hear that. And I appreciate the opportunity to just kind of explain sort of, my feelings about the park. I mean, not only the fact that it's a resource from a cultural standpoint in terms of just the design integrity, but it's a natural resource. This is our resiliency plan for this part of the world. I mean, this is flooding so that other places don't flood, and we need to make sure that we keep it that way and that we treat it in a way that it can sort of be that resilient sponge that we need. So, so I think it seems like a great approach, and I'm happy to hear everything you said, Mr. Chair.
So there's one thing I do want to mention, but it's probably under other business, but it's related to a concern that I brought up in another meeting, but I'll save it for later, is that we need to think beyond the immediate. We need to think like 500 years out. What's going to be here? And with the recent flood that happened, I had a concern that, where I saw water rising up to almost the top table of the pavilion, I had a concern about electricity. Well, are we, our outlets, hopefully they're GFCI, and that's fine, they'll shut off, but just the fact that we had lights on a timer, and we didn't know who could shut the power off in case something catastrophic happened, if bystanders were down there and God forbid they got electrified. I'm sure there's stuff in place that's not going to happen, but we just need to start thinking of long-term, what are things we can do to help mitigate some of the flooding or the better absorption through use of coconut husk or whatever along the edge of the river, or things that we can do to ensure that it does act as a buffer zone and that it can drain appropriately. So.
Yeah, and I've had some conversations, and I know that we have talked about way long-range planning to try to protect the parkway, but I have been contacted in this latest round of flooding with the concern over that electrical panel being inundated with water. I don't have an answer of that brackish water being able to not be in there. Certainly, the rainwater and all does not get in there.
Right.
So I think it's something that we're going to need to explore with probably DPW. Nico, would you say that that's where we should maybe start to have that conversation about that and what can be done with that?
I do.
Because again, being down there, growing up and looking at that every time we go down, every time we mowed around there, and never giving it a thought. So, until I got 2 phone calls in regards to that. So I think it's a valid point on that. I will say too that the drilling is supposed to start tomorrow for the next pipe. That has been delayed a little bit because of the weather. I had gotten some calls. They tried to move some of their equipment to a little bit higher ground down there while the flooding occurred. But certainly it's becoming more than just an event that happens every 3 or 4 years. So, there's some conversation that needs to be had about that too. And I certainly hope, Ms. Martell, you would help to be involved with some of that conversation too. So, we have a lot of green industry people sitting here today, so that for me is encouraging. So, anything else on your presentation?
No, I think I'm all set. I really,
Okay.
again, thank you for having me here tonight. I really appreciate it.
Well, I again thank you for coming in and doing that and sending all the emails for us to read and see this before. No, I like this plan. I don't know where it will go. That's all.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, when people start looking at things and putting their heads together, then there's always ways to improve. So, I'm not married to this plan or anything. I just think I wanted to put something out there so that we could think about it a little bit differently and maybe start to get the juices flowing.
Sure. Sure. No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the electrical panel, yep.
Thanks. See ya.
We will we'll reach out over the next few months to the DPW and see what we can come up with on that. Beyond that, that's all that I have for tonight. Does anybody else have anything else?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Well, there is.
You can still have discussion.
So
I'm just starting the process.
I understand. So I'll keep it very brief. And so the only other thing I wanted to bring up is that for another placeholder, we need to look at the fencing at some point along the river. That needs to be looked at with the recent flooding. I'm sure there's been some weakness and other things to occur, so that's just a safety issue. And the other one is, Nico, I don't know if this would exist or how we go about this, if it's something else, but, and I'll share this. When I was in Ireland, along every body of water, along the cliffs, wherever we were, every 100 meters there was a life preserver. God forbid that we should ever have something like that, someone gets swept away or falls over the fence or something, but I don't know if that's something we can ever look at from a safety perspective, to have a life preserver that's this along the fence. Something just to consider in case something should ever happen, someone gets swept out to the river. The other one is really looking at what we can do long-term about how to shore up our embankment, just to make it a little more safe and a little more resilient. That's just a 500-year thing.
It's a 50-year thing.
Well, I'd like to think of a 500, it is a 50-year thing, but I'm thinking we need to start thinking in terms of what can we do now today that will be here 500 years later.
The only thing that can be done is go up.
Or we can dredge the river.
No.
I don't think dredging the river is
It's not going to happen.
Going to be
It actually is going up, or
going up along there. So again, there's been some conversations started on that, and I think, and again, I think it has to be a collaboration between the trustees and the select board, and
well, you've got an issue across the whole back of the downtown, and not just Swasey.
Right.
Correct.
There's, right now, the water at a minimum in Swasey, I would say, was probably 2 feet above ground elevation down by the river. So that would be your starting point for any kind of barrier.
Right.
Nico, and just to get a little bit off on this, but on this topic, but does the select board or DPW or anybody have they looked at that along the waterfront behind the stores down there and talked about a plan or anything?
So we had talked about this, I think you'll remember, maybe a little over a year ago. And, over the past year, we've been wrapped up with the siphons, but with this latest episode, and it was really trial by fire for our new DPW director, it was his first couple of days.
Right.
It's caught his attention, and this is back on the top burner for us. So we will be, looking into what we need to do for next steps.
And then the other part of that is that I saw how high the water level rose. Mm-hmm. Our wastewater containment, are those banks high enough? Right? I mean, it's pretty close.
Wastewater?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where the wastewater pools are.
Oh, yeah.
It was, granted, are we going to have a high tide cycle with a storm coming in and the rainwater coming? Will that happen again? Most likely it's going to happen, but to have those several events occur, within a very short period of time, the damage that was done on the seacoast in Hampton and Rye and the seawall and some of those roadways and stuff like that, it's just one of those things that we need to start thinking about. That's all. As a collective.
No, and those conversations did start, and again, it was his first week. It's caught his attention, so this will become a priority.
Right. Well, and again, just sitting here thinking about, the back of the downtown and Swasey Parkway, and that also encompasses the Academy Boathouse. So there's a lot of there's a lot of entities, if you will, involved with all of that. So yeah.
And I'd just like to say we were in touch, or I was in touch with the town manager, over the course of that weekend. And I just want to say what a great job the Public Works Department did responding to that. And working with PEA and the boathouse, working with the businesses, working with private citizens who had cars there. They did a great job responding.
Sure. No, we're lucky. We're lucky.
Oh, they've been working hard.
Yep.
Thanks to DPW.
Yep.
Okay, so.
And police and fire too, while we're at it, because they were very critical to that effort as well.
And thank you to you and the town manager as well for being on top of it. So thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Anything else?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I think you had a motion to adjourn sitting there.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion to adjourn. Any discussion? Next meeting is going to be February 21st. Okay, 2/21/24. That's the only discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We adjourn at 5:53 p.m. Thank you very much for joining us, Nico.
Thank you for accommodating
tuning
me.
in
Take
to
care.
Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, We invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.